So, good morning, all. Today I am Afshan and my friend Rushikesh. Here we are giving a presentation on electroencephalogram, which is also called EEG. So, this is the outline of our presentation. It starts from the introduction part and going with the basic EEG functions and its machines and its placement, following with the signal processing process, advantage, disadvantage, and application part. So, let's start with the introduction part. So, first question that comes in our mind when we talk about is EEGs, what it is. So, EEG is a test that allow us to get the inner working of our human brain. We have different parts of the body, and the brain is the most complicated part. To analyze the brain, we uses EEG as a medium. So EEG actually records the electrical activity of the brain. It records the electrical activity via the help of some electrodes, which we discuss later. So it mainly used for this for diagnosing the neurological disorders. Firstly, it was being taken for a human in 1920 by Hans Berger, a German physicist. So let's move on to the anatomy of the brain. So brain is the biggest part in the central nervous system, and it's in this case we mainly taking the three main division of the brain called the cerebrum, which is the upper hemispherical part, the brainstem which connected brain from the spinal cord, and the cerebellum. Cerebellum is the part of the hindbrain. So the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the upper hemispherical part of the body, which is divided into two equally part, left and right. And the surface of the hemisphere, this cerebrum hemisphere, is called the cortex. The cortex is useful for taking the information from the skin and eyes and ears, and using that information it will help in analyzing the different things. Like we can also divide the cerebrum into four different lobes, like the temporal. For hearing purpose, we can all the hearing signals which is from the auditory canal to the brain is comes to the temporal lobe, where it gets analyzed and being processed. Here another occipital lobe, which is responsible for taking the visual content from the visual pathways. Similarly, parietal lobe for sensing one, and frontal lobe for motor control. So here the brain stream. The brain stream is a part is consists of the small part of the of the small part of the brain which come together to control the regulate to control the blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing of the human body. Cerebrum is a part of human hindbrain which is actually being useful for controlling and the movement coordination of the human body. So from further, Rushikesh will continue.
Uh, so I will be explaining the block diagram of ECG machine. So when we consider any signal, first we need to get that signal, then we need to pre-process on that. Then there will be signal processing on that, and then we'll analyze that signal on the display. So firstly, there in this EEG signal, there will be electrodes placed on the head. So that electrodes, there will be some head box. So headbox is a interface between electrodes and the switching system. So each lead wire from the electrode is plugged into the corresponding location on the headbox. So this is the headbox. Next there is montage selector. So montage selector is used to select the combination of leads for acquiring specific brain signals. Like if you want to get the hearing signal from the brain, then we can collect the leads from the brain of temporal nodes. So this is montage selector. Next are amplifiers. So like the EEG signal is having very low amplitude, like in microvolt. So we need to like amplify the EEG signal. So we need amplifiers for that. Then there will be analog to digital converter. Like the signal processing part needs it is mainly happen in computers. So we need digital signal for that. So we need analog to digital converter for that purpose. Then there will be signal isolation block. So this block is mainly used like to protect the user from electrical faults and prevent from like interference from other sources. Then there will be the main block, that is digital signal processor. In that there will be filters like to denoise the signal. Like there are like various filters, high pass, low pass, notch filters. So Next, there will be in signal processor, there is like sensitivity adjust part, which is used to adjust the gain and the amplification of the EEG signal. Then there will be sweeping speed, like it is the rate at which EEG data is displayed on the screen. Next, which is very important part, that is visualization of EEG signal. Like there is memory also. So to store the EEG data, there will be printers to print the EEG data on the paper, and we can see that on the paper, the graph. Then there will be monitors to display the EEG signal, and we can analyze that on display. Next, there are two types of electrodes: invasive electrodes and non-invasive electrodes. Like in the example for invasive is needle like electrodes, and non-invasive the surface electrodes. So now like we can, how the electrodes are placed on the brain so that we can collect the ECG, right? So there is an internationally accepted 1020 electrode system is used for this purpose. Now this is the placement diagram of electrodes. In that, the distance from Nassian to anion and the left ear to right ear is calculated first. Then the according to 10 and 20 percentage of that particular distance is calculated, and the electrodes are placed on our head. So this is the central part, center point CZ. Respect to that 10-20% 10-20% distance, the placement is done. So this is the so from Nassian to FZ it is 10%, FZ to CZ it is 20%. Likewise CZ to PZ it is 20%, and PZ to Inion is 10%. So this is the top view from above the head, and this is the side view. So here it is clearly mentioned. A1 to T3 it is 10%, T3 to C3 it is 20%, likewise. So this is the electrode system which is known as 1020 because of this reason only, the 10-20% is taken as a count. So next, there are some waveforms. They are divided into according to the frequency ranges. First one is delta wave. It ranges from zero point 0.5 to 4 hertz. It is generally we can get from young children. Next are theta waves, ranges from 4 to 7 hertz, generated when the person is about to wake up. Next are alpha waves. Its range from 7 to 12. So it is generated when we are awake, but we are closed. The eyes of us is like closed. Next are beta waves. Like its range from 12 to 30 hertz, generated when we are like consciously focusing on something. The last wave is ranges from 30 waves, 30 hertz to 100 hertz, which is gamma wave, and it is generated when we are learning or something, or when very information processing happening in our brain. So now I'll talk about EEG artifacts. So there are artifacts are like noise, which are not generate the signals which are not generated by brain but recorded by the EEG. So there are two types of artifacts: physiological artifacts and non-physiological artifacts. So physiological artifacts are uh, got into the signal because some biological by some moment of activity of by the patient, like occurs due to eye movement, muscle movement, and high scalp impedance. Now, the next is non-physiological artifacts. These are mainly due to the machine fault or extreme electromagnetic interference. So these are occurs due to improper electrode positioning, dried out of electrolytic gel, and the main is electromagnetic interference because of 50 hertz noise generated from electrical power plant. So now further continued by Afshan.
So let's talk about evoke potential. What is an evoke potential? The first question that comes in our mind. So evok potential is a response of electrical, it's an electrical response that is generated from the brain with respect to the activities like in the like sound, like light, or any electrical impulse on our sensory portions like eye, ear, and on skin. So the evoke potential, what does it signifies? The evoke potential is helpful or signifies that the signal that is transferred from the sensory organ like skin or the eye to the brain in the period of time, which on the basis of that we can diagnose that the whether the pathway of the evoke potential transfer is correct, or it is maybe needs some work one. So now there are some type of evoke potential that we take into consideration, like brainstem auditory evoke potential. As from the name, we can look at that the brainstem auditory means the potential, the action which is generated, which causes the evoke potential is the auditory signal, mainly sound signal, and on response of that, our brain generated an electrical activity. What does it happen? What does it helpful for? It is helpful for analyzing the hearing function of the human body. Now, second is the somatosensory evoked potential. In that case, we apply an electrical shock or electrical stimulation on the skin of on the surface of the skin, so it will gives an impulse to the brain, and on the basis of that impulse we can identify whether the neural feedback network of our body is working properly or not. And the third one is the visual evoke potential. In that case, we apply some visual like the flashing checkboard pattern in the visual screen. On the basis of that, our brain generated some electrical activity, and that electrical activity will be helpful in detecting whether some person having a vision problem or not. So now we are in a process, we are about to start the signal processing of an EEG. So signal processing is what? Signal processing is the analyzing of a signal. Look, there is different type of signal in this human body, and each and every signal has its own significance. Until and unless we can process them, it is a noise. So to analyze that, to convert that noise into a useful information, we uses the signal processing process. What does it contain? It contains the analyzing and extracting of the useful information from the signal which we got from the body. It is mainly classified into four parts. With first is acquisition, second is pre-processing, third is feature extraction, and fourth is classification. Let's start with the acquisition process. So firstly, acquisition, as from the name suggests, we need to acquire the signal from the human body. The EEG signal is mainly generated by the brain. So we need to take it from the brain by placing some electrodes on the scalp of the head, and then on with this signal we can actually get the signal, but the signal are as much of low amplitude. So to amplify them we use amplifier, and then we need to convert that signal into to digital to digital domain by the help of analog to digital converter. Then the pre-processing part comes. Why we need pre-processing? Because the signal still contains some noises, some artifacts and noises from the while acquisition we got some artifacts and noises. To remove that artifacts and noises from the signal, we need to pre-process it before using into technical consideration. So there are some noises, some of them are power line interference and mechanical muscle activity. So how to remove them? They are mainly removed by using some filtering techniques. Like we have some filters for removing each and specific type of noises. Like for the notch filter, notch, what is the function of notch filter? Notch filter is specifically restricted a specific frequency and allowing other frequency to pass on. Why we use in this EEG? Because we know that in the EEG or any type of electrical recording system, we got a noise of 50 hertz, which is a power line interference noise, and due to that we need to use notch filter in every ECG pre-processing. Second is a low pass filter. As from the name, it allows low frequency to pass on and restrict the high frequency. Why it is being important for us? Because we read that it restricted the high frequency to it's restricted high frequency. Due to that, it will be useful for removing high frequency noises such as muscle contraction and electromagnetic interference. The third one is high pass filter. Similarly, like the low pass filter, but in opposite in function, it passes the high frequency and attenuated the low frequency. so that we can remove the low frequency noises from it, like the movement and aspiration of the body. Second is the band pass. The fourth is a band pass filter. Why we need band pass filter? As before in this slide we read that about the different type of waveforms. So how do we get the waveform? Brain doesn't give all the waveform in a different way. We get a full waveform of the brain, and we can apply band pass filter for a specific range. Just for and take an example, alpha wave is ranging from 7 hertz to 13 hertz. So we apply a band pass filter with a lower cutoff frequency of 7 hertz and a higher cutoff frequency of 13 hertz, so that we get a specific alpha wave in between that. Next is feature extraction. The feature extraction means extracting the relevant information from the signal. So it can be taken by two process, like time domain analysis and frequency domain analysis. In time domain analysis, we analyze the amplitude and the shape of the signal over time, and this measures the mean, variance, peak, amplitude, and the duration of the EEG signals. Second is the frequency domain analysis. What does we do in the frequency domain analysis? We analyze the spectral content of the signal over frequency. It used to decompose the EEG signal into different frequency band. Means we decompose the frequency band into different parts, and then the power and the phase of each frequency component of the EEG signal. And the last, we got a classification. We need to classify that EEG signals into different category on the basis of their similarity with the other signal, and their identification on the basis of their extracted features. The classification part is mainly done with the using machine some algorithm, computer algorithm, like machine learning algorithms. So we use a support vector machine, neural network, and k neighbors type of algorithms. So that's Rishikesh will conclude.
So, I will talk about some advantages of EEG. EEG is fast and responsive. EEG is cheap and safe, and EEG is flexible and versatile. Like the machines of EEG are very not that expensive, so it is cheap and it is safe to uh, like get EEG. I'll talk about some disadvantages also. Like EEG has poor spatial resolution. EEG is susceptible to noise and artifacts. EEG is limited in ability to measure the deep brain structure, and EEG has low frequency and low amplitude. So that for that purpose only we need amplifiers so that we can amplify that signal. Now some applications of EEG, like it is used to diagnose the epilepsy, monitor some seizure disorders, like to analyze some sleep studies. For cognitive neuroscience research, we can use EEG. For brain computer interfaces, we use EEG. For assessment of coma and brain death, and the last one is research into brain disorder. Now I will conclude like the EEG signal. Like EEG is very important signal in which the various brain disorders are going to diagnose by EEG. So EEG is need of an hour. Now these are some references so that from which we got our content, and so thank you for listening to us.
Any question?